So is this the 4th edition or the 5th edition codex? Oh, seriously? Hey you guys, 6+ Stevo here with another travel back through time to look at this, the 4th edition Ork Codex. So yeah, last time we looked at the 7th edition codex, a codex that is not highly thought of at all, and that was definitely reflected in the comments section when I asked the question, was it really the worst Ork Codex? The majority of you wholeheartedly voted yes, and I think I tend to agree with you as well. It wasn't a great codex in terms of competitiveness. The book itself is still really cool and worth owning for the artwork and the pictures and the lore and stuff in it. Definitely worth owning. But this one is what preceded it, and it made the sting of that codex so much worse, because this one, as we're about to see, was just so damn good. So join me as we travel even further back through time. Okay guys, so here we are, table down again for another look back at an old school Ork Codex. So yeah, is it 4th edition? Is it 5th edition? Well, I thought it was 5th edition. I've always called this the 5th edition codex. That's where my memories of this come from, playing this codex through 5th edition. However, it was fellow YouTuber and podcast buddy Skarner that pointed out to me that this actually was the 4th edition codex. The reason I got confused with that is because this was released in January of 2008. So over 10 years old now, this codex, and that was during the tail end of 4th edition. 5th edition was released in July 2008. So although technically speaking this is the 4th edition codex, it really was, for all intents and purposes, I think designed for 5th edition. Having said that, 4th and 5th edition were very similar. There were tweaks and balances and stuff, but they were very similar games. But yeah, so we only really got 6 months use out of this during the 4th edition, and then it lasted all the way through 5th edition, and also all the way through 6th edition. Can you believe it? It wasn't until 7th edition where Orks were the first faction to get a fully fledged codex for that edition of the game. So I would say this is probably the longest running Ork Codex. Don't quote me on that, but it certainly went through the most editions of the game. So we had this through 4th, 5th and 6th edition. So yeah, that's quite a time span. And so a lot of Ork players have got some very fond memories of this. This really was something quite special. But let's take a look inside. The artwork on the front is great. It's an iconic piece. Really, really cool. Yeah, there's loads of detail in there. You've got the little grots down here scrabbling to get in. You've got all the shooter boys. You can see the big stomper / gargant at the back there, and the death dreads. And yeah, it's just quality. Seeing the Orks charging into battle, led by the war boss. Good stuff. And it's it's quite a thick codex as well. How many pages has this thing got? 104 pages. So yeah, there's a lot of content here, a lot of stuff to get through. So let's take a look. Codex Orks by Phil Kelly. Good stuff. We get some artwork here. The mighty Ghazghkull Thraka leads his tribe to battle. And we got the contents in the introduction, how the codex works, etc., etc. It goes on here at the start, just telling us about the Ork race, and it's just basically describing the Orks. Most codexes still do this. A typical Ork stands around the same height as a man, though he would be much taller if he would only stand up straight. His frame is extremely muscular and solid. An orc's arms are long and heavily thewed, and his knuckles almost scrape the floor as he lopes around. His gnarled hands end in taloned fingers capable of tearing an enemy's throat out with ease. So, everyone talking about orcs should be bigger. No, they shouldn't, because it states orcs are basically the same height as a man. Well, they're not. They're taller than a man, but because of the way they're hunched over in their pose, they are basically man-sized. And I personally wouldn't like to see orcs get any bigger. Not the boys, anyway. You know, knobs and prime orcs and stuff is another matter. But just the orcs themselves, I would like to stay the same size as they currently are. And this is a classic example of one of the older codexes. What they used to do is have, well, they still do it now, but I think to a lesser extent, you get these little snippets of sort of stories and little bits of information. This little story here is about Volkrak attacking some space marines with his leading his boys into battle against some space marines, and it's good stuff. Let's have a little read of some of it. The orcs poured out of the hold, an unstoppable tide of savagery and hatred that pelted headlong into the volleys of disciplined bolter fire. Volkrak led the charge, hitting the Space Marine's gun line like an out-of-control juggernaut. Blood arced as his power claw smashed 3 Space Marines from their feet, and the war boss's laughter rang out across the battlefield. Today was a good day to be an orc. Awesome stuff. And we get some awesome artwork here as well. This is a famous piece. Just such a cool, iconic picture. I think this is one that's been later on colorized in the 7th edition codex. I'm sure it has. The Green Menace. So this goes into more detail, talking about all the different sort of sub-factions and sort of aspects of the orc race. So we're going into Gretchins, Snotlings, Squigs, the Lost Race. So it starts talking about the Brain Boys and how they were the creators of the orcs. And we now know, at least through speculation and stuff, we sort of know that the Brain Boys were in fact, or most probably, the old ones, and that the orcs were originally created to help fight off the Necrons and the Catan. But and it talks into about the runt herds and how they tell the stories. Orc legend, such as it is generally passed down by the runt herds, those who specialise in the breeding and training of the lesser greenskin races. They speak of a legendary caste of greenskins who created the orcs of today as a warrior race to protect their own. Difficult as it is to believe, the ancient race was extremely intelligent and held dominion over the other orc castes. They were much smaller than their servants, so they bred the orcs to be as strong and fierce as possible to protect them from predators and invaders. Though their orc and Gretchen servants were anything but intellectual, they had a strong survival instinct and an innate understanding of their own universe. The runt herds refer to the mysterious forefathers of the orcs as the Brain Boys. And I love this bit. They got loads of cool little snippets and quotes in this book. I'm going to do it in orc character here. The only lost race I ever heard of was when Ev crashed his trike in the final stretch of the Cross Desert Rally. Cost me a few teeth, that. And that was from Nuzgrond of the Black Skulls. Awesome stuff. And then we go into greenskin culture, talking about the orc hierarchy, and how might is right, the biggest always leads, a life of conflict, and how they just love a never-ending war, and the cult of speed. It goes into all the different types of things. And orc teeth, very important to a bad moon such as myself. In orc society, teeth are used as money and form the entire basis of the orc economy. The teeth must be big, sharp, ivory-like fangs to have any real value. Human teeth are just too fiddly and pathetic. The orcs have used teeth as money since their immemorial. It is a natural form of currency. Considering the fact that orcs shed and replace their teeth every few years, this means that the number of teeth in circulation never diminishes enough to create a shortage, and that no individual orc can be reduced to dire poverty for too long. This simple approach to an issue most civilizations agonize about is typical of the pragmatic attitude of the orc race. And it's cool. It's just, I love the little picture as well. You see the little snotling there trying to rip a teeth out of a severed orc head. There's just some great stuff like that in here. But that, among other things, lots of detail in here about how the orcs, probably one of the most dangerous things about orcs is, unlike other races like mankind and the elder and stuff, who squabble and fight over politics and leadership and democracy and debating things and argue and fight amongst themselves, whereas orcs, yeah, of course they fight amongst themselves, but they do that because it's a laugh basically, and it's what they love doing, but they all have the same belief: the biggest and the strongest is the best. And they are just very simple minded. And this quote, I think I read this quote out on the last one when I did the 7th edition codex, but this sort of sums it up perfectly. The orcs are the pinnacle of creation. For them the great struggle is won. They have evolved a society which knows no stress or angst. Who are we to judge them, we elder who have failed, or the humans on the road to ruin in their turn? And why? Because we sought answers to questions that an orc wouldn't even bother to ask. We see a culture that is strong and despise it as crude. Ulthwan the Perverse, elder philosopher. And that one quote, that appears, I can't remember when it first appeared, it might have been in the previous codex, in the 3rd edition one, but that quote has been in every codex since, and it just sums up the real threat of the orcs, because when a war boss of enough power and respect commands a war, the orcs are behind him 100%, and they are as one mind, going for their goals and targets, and they will not be bargained with and will not be stopped. And orcs are a massive threat to every other race in the universe. It then goes on talking about Oddboys. So Oddboys are basically, they make up the mech boys, the pain boys, the runt herds, and weird boys. So all the orcs are sort of the specialisms, like pain boys as well. And this, it goes into saying about how the brain boys basically bred this into the orcs. So if we wanted to learn to build machines of war, we wanted to learn to become a doctor or something, we have to go through universities and college, and we have to study, and we have to do apprenticeships, and we have to, years and years and years of training and learning to be able to do these things. Orcs, these Oddboys, are basically born with this knowledge. They a pain boy will instinctively be drawn towards chopping up his mates and repairing and fixing bits, and just have the knowledge of knowing how to rewire a brain and how to stitch an arm back on. Mech boys will instinctively know how to create vehicles of war, how to create weapons, how to create warp gates, spacefaring vehicles that can travel through the warp. It's quite incredible. And they have this as an instinctive knowledge, and it's part of the reason, again, why orcs are so dangerous, and they're thought of by a lot of people as stupid and dumb, and in certain sense then yes they are. And most orcs will think of nothing more than just grabbing weapons and fighting, and they don't really think anything further than that. But these Oddboys are the very reason that the orcs are so dangerous, because they're the ones that give them the ability to get off world and rampage across the stars. And it's very cool how this sort of has been bred into them, and how they're basically, millennia ago several millennia ago were an engineered race by the old ones. And it just goes on. There's, like I say, you can see there's a lot of fluff in this codex. Here we are, tribes and clans. So it goes on to talk about, now this is quite important because a lot of people do get this confused, how tribes and clans, they are two different things. So, and this sort of goes into a detail about what is a tribe and what is a clan. Well, a clan, much like with the Oddboys, it's different orcs that sort of are gravitating towards a certain type of warfare or a certain type of culture, and that's instinctively within them. They're sort of born into that. And a tribe can contain, it simply says here, a tribe is simply all the orcs in a given location, regardless of what cult or clan they may belong to, because in the end, an orc is an orc, and they will always put aside their differences if there is an opportunity to beat up a common enemy. Each tribe is led by a war boss or warlord whose authority and power holds the loose confederation in check and prevents civil war between the rival elements of the tribe. Tribes can vary in size from a few thousand orcs to a few million, depending on the influence of the war leader at the top of the pile. And so a tribe can contain orcs from all the different clans, and orcs will happily fight for the biggest, baddest war boss if it means a damn good war. And then it goes on to talk about the actual clans as well. Although all orcs belong to a tribe, many also belong to clans such as the Goths or Evil Sons. Tribes are constantly breaking apart and reforming in the crucible of battle, but the clans are a constant and enduring. A large tribe usually contains many different clans, and each clan has its own distinct character and identity. There are 6 clans that have spread from one side of the galaxy to the other: the Goths, the Snakebites, the Bad Moons, the Blood Axes, the Death Skulls, and the Evil Sons. Each has distinct cultural preferences and abilities, perhaps engineered into the orcs by the brain boys of the distant past in an attempt to ensure a productive society. The orcs, on the other hand, work hard to ensure their society is as violent as possible. And so it goes into the different clans. So it can talk about the Goths. We're the best. Think different, do ya? Come and have a go then, you runty little wimp. Typical brutish Goth there. Evil Sons, they like going fast. We know all this already. Bad Moons, they're the boys. Bought me a death blaster off Rotscrag earlier. Nice little killer. Just ask Rotscrag. That was Fat Druzka Flash Git. Lovely. Yeah, and it just gives you some good fluff about each clan. You've got the Snakebites, Blood Axes, Death Skulls. There's a bit here talking about the Ork gods, Gork and Mork. One's brutal and cunning, one's cunning and brutal. Talking about gathering the War, and how the warlord will fight his way to the top, and it will grow and grow and grow. The Savage Stars. So as you can see, we're 18 pages in now, and it's just all been fluff and lore. Good stuff. Here you go. I've got to read this. So it's talking about space travel and space hulks and everything. Travelling through space is boring. Well, boring unless the hulk you're on is full of them gene sneakers, or a base for the chaos lads with the spikes, or already has boys on it, or if Umi looters come calling. That's always good for a bit of sport. Or unless you have a mutiny or two to pass the time. Or unless strange things start happening, which they usually do when you're out in the warp. One time we had some bloody great ugly thing come straight out of weird Lugwart's head. It butchered half the lads. That was pretty entertaining. Come to think of it, space is a pretty good laugh. And that's before you find yourself a nice new world to crush. Bigmore, Ork Runt Herd. Very well spoken there. It's just, it's great. It just gives you a real taste of what's so fantastic about the orcs. There's nothing not to love about them. We get charts here showing about the Ork systems of conquest and how they go through their interstellar travel and travel from one galaxy to the other. And a whole picture of the map of the galaxy, the universe here, where all the different wars are going on. Let's see, the Overfiend of Octavius, the Arch Arsonist of Caradon, War Gorbad, War Wazdaka. Here we are, War Gazgol and War Nazdrek. War Wazdaka, all heading towards Armageddon. Oh, bring back Nazdrek, GW, please. It'd be cool to have him back. That looks familiar. That is the artwork from 3rd edition Codex. Another iconic piece. And it goes on here talking about some of the history and some of the campaigns and wars that the Orks have been in. Yeah, a lot of history here about Nazdreg and how he helped Gazgol with his teleporters attacking Armageddon. The Arch Arsonist. Yeah, and it really does hint at Gazgol being the, you're talking about him being the prophet of the war and how he'll lead all the Orks into one almighty war that will crush the galaxy. And it's exciting stuff, and it's all these codexes are sort of building up to Gazgol becoming this sort of, prime Ork. GW, make it happen, please. A little bit about War Wazdaka. You'll have to watch my video all about him. Cool character. Tusker the Demon Killer. Now this is a character, they've never had a model for Tusker, but I think a lot of people out there have wanted one because his story is so cool, and it's it's a great story. This whole story is really good, talking about how he this is basically he'll have fighting demons basically, and he actually led his I don't think it's in this one anyway. Yeah, he basically travelled into the warp to find a proper good fight, and it was great because the Cadian Gate, guarding the Eye of Terror, were taken by surprise because he led his fleet into the Eye of Terror, and they were completely unprepared for it because they were just so stunned and shocked that an attack would ever come from that direction. They were so used to stopping things coming out of the Eye of Terror that they never thought for 1 second they'd have to deal with anything trying to fight its way into the Eye of Terror. And I think eventually they just basically let the Orks head off into there to avoid any more bloodshed and carnage. So just brilliant stuff. Only the Orks were doing this. And yeah, basically he's now on a demon planet, being constantly resurrected to fight demons of Khorne, I believe. And yeah, so it would be very cool to see a model of him, because I know some people have sort of done like Chaos Orks and stuff, and sort of a Khorne type Ork would be pretty cool. And yeah, perhaps we will see a model of him one day, maybe by Forge World or something. It'd be very cool to see brought to life. And yeah, it just goes on about more different wars and famous battles that the Orks have been in. Talking about the battles for Armageddon. It's good stuff. And then we get all the symbols of the glyphs, so you can sort of this is a handy tool to use to be able to if you're putting glyphs on your vehicles, on banner poles, etc., on your terrain and stuff, it can be quite cool to sort of customize them and actually use some of their basic language and stuff. Like the fist is for a boss. You got like the stitches there, which is Scragger, which is Oddboy veteran. So yeah, there's loads of cool stuff there to look at. And then we're into the forces of the Orks and some of the special rules. So this was great. The old mob rule. Ork psychology and morale is directly linked to the number of boys around them at any time. An Ork with a truckload of his mates backing him up is a good sight more confident than one with half his witmate Zog at his heels. Because of this, Ork mobs may always choose to substitute the number of Orks in their mob for their normal leadership value. If an Ork mob numbers 11 or more models, it has the fearless special rule. Awesome stuff. Although that did get slightly worse in 5th edition, because I'm sure it was 5th edition that had some pretty harsh rules. It's probably one of the only rules in 5th edition that I was not a fan of, was that if you lost combat and you were fearless, you would suffer sort of casualties by how much you lost combat by. So it kind of made fearless a bit of a hindrance in some cases. It was a bit harsh, that. I remember when they changed that, and that used to basically get on my tits a bit when I lost models because they were fearless. But having said that, it was awesome, and it was one of the things that the changes to mob rule and stuff, going from this one to the 7th edition codex, is probably the number one reason why so many people hated 7th edition codex and longed for this one to come back. And we go in the war, and the war was very different then to what it is now. Now the war rule is from your war boss. Any units around him can charge, even if they advanced. The war rule then was very different. It was an army wide, and you could call one war per game, basically. And if a unit rolls a 1 when making this war movement, the Orks start fighting before they get to the enemy. One model from that unit takes a single wound. Note that the unit may still move an inch and assault as normal. So let's read the rule on this again. Orks live for the moment when they charge into battle screaming "War" at the top of their lungs. Once per game, the Ork player can declare a war during his shooting phase. This may not normally be declared on the first turn, as a proper war needs some momentum behind it. For the duration of that turn, all friendly Ork infantry units have the Fleet of Foot special rule. Not Gretchen units, they're far too weedy for a proper war. So yeah, basically it just means they're advancing, basically. And Furious Charge, obviously we used to have this to represent their reckless bloodlust. Many Ork units have the Furious Charge special rule, and I believe Furious Charge was +1 strength and +1 initiative, so that took the Orks from their, at this time, strength 3 to strength 4, and from initiative 2 to initiative 3 on the turn they charged. For you newer players out there who are wondering what I'm on about with initiative, initiative is a stat that no longer exists, but basically it was a stat that whoever had the higher initiative would fight first in the combat phase. None of this taking it in turns, or whoever charged like we have now, which in my opinion is so much better. This low initiative with the Orks really, really used to hurt them. And codexes were laid out very differently back then. We get sort of the full kind of fluff and stuff about each type of thing. So we've got war bosses and knobs. We get their stat lines, we get their special rules, we don't get their points. We get that on another bit further on down the line. And this was when the war banner was an upgrade in a knobs unit rather than a separate character, which I kind of prefer actually, but the game has changed quite significantly since those days. Mech Boys, which are now just called mechs, and then we've got Big Mechs. Big Mechs came with a 6+ save as standard. You had to pay points and upgrade them to either heavy or mega armor. Weird Boys. You got your Weird Boys psychic powers here. So what we got? We got Ed Banger. We've still got that one, although no one uses it because it's not very good. We've got Frazzle, which is range 24, strength 6, AP 3, blast with pinning. Zap, Warpath. Now let's have a read of that. See if that's Weird Boy disperses the energy coursing through his frame into the Ork warriors around him with dramatic effect. All Orks in the Weirdboys unit have +1 attack until the beginning of the next Ork turn. So yeah, it's basically exactly the same as it was. Here we go. Alright. This is obviously, here we go, is a special rule that we have in the army for all Orks as it is now. But here we have. The weird boy closes his eyes tight and in a storm of green light teleports his unit to another part of the so that's to jump. They've changed the wording of it. But yeah, that is the old one. And that's where he used to teleport with them. Yeah. Because this is back in the day of independent characters that would join a unit. And War. So a weird boy can call a War as well. And then goes on, talks about Mad Boys, and this is quite cool. I like this. Mad Boys are those Orks whose behaviour marks them out as mad as a helmet full of stinger squigs. Though they are physically identical to other Orks, the fact they wear outlandish garb and carry everything from rusty buckets to stuffed terror squirrels into battle proves that they are very different in all sorts of entertaining ways. Mad Boys often form informal retinues for Weird Boys and live apart from other Orks in small shanty towns. Mobs of Mad Boys are considered to be lucky, and their presence is a sign of good fortune. This does not entail a certain amount of inconvenience. This does, as when they decide to hold impromptu shouting contests in the middle of a night raid, or when a frantic Mad Boy decides that his best hat is somewhere in your house. The writing in this book is just brilliant. There's just so many. I think you forget some of these little bits because you get so focused on the rules. So you're just reading the stats and the rules and what the rules do. But when you read these little bits, especially in an Ork Codex, you come across little tidbits like that just make you laugh. I love that line. Or when a frantic Mad Boy decides that his best hat is somewhere in your house. Oh, superb. It goes on to Pain Boys. Back when we had the universal special rules, we had Mob Rule, Furious Charge, War. Mega Knobs. And look, talks about freebooters down here, not with the other clans, didn't mention them, talks about them here. Freebooters are roving bands of pirates, bandits and mercenaries that belong to no particular warband or clan. Being Orks, they are eager for adventure, combat and booty, and they tag along with larger Ork warbands whenever it looks like a fight may be on the cards. Really successful freebooters have fearsome reputations and enjoy a kind of fame amongst the Ork rank and file. They hire their services to the highest bidder, adding their arsenals to the war effort in exchange for yet more teeth and snazzy war gear. So and there you have it, people. Freebooters are not a clan. They are the exact opposite of a clan. They are Orks with no clan. They're just pirates. Dirty, stinking pirates. Handy though if you've got the teeth to hire their services. Ork Boys, so yeah, we can see their stats very differently then. So weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 2, which is still the same, which is basically 5+. Strength 3, strength 3 back then. Toughness 4, 1 wound, 2 initiative, 2 attacks, leadership 7, 6+ save. And we see the Oddboys, and we've just heard rumours that they are coming back in a certain form, although not with a 4+ save, apparently with a 5+. But it's just good to have them back. And we got the trucks with their old special rules. I hope they bring some of these special rules back. So Ramshackle special rule. If a truck suffers a vehicle destroyed or vehicle explodes, wrecked result, roll on the Ramshackle table below and apply the result instead of one of the usual effects. So you'd roll a d6 and on a 1 to 2, kaboom, the truck explodes, catapulting flaming debris and stunned Orks in all directions. The truck is destroyed. All passengers and models within d6 take a strength 3 hit. Surviving passengers must disembark and take a pinning test. 3 to 4. Careen. The shot sends the truck out of control. Move the truck 3d6 as far as possible in a random direction. The Ork player chooses if he rolls a hit on the scatter dice. Then apply the kaboom result above. If the truck would careen into an enemy model or terrain, stop it 1 inch away. And then crunch. Something vital gives, but the Ork passengers bail out of their vehicle before it falls apart, with a noise like a mega knob falling down a spiral staircase. The Ork passengers take no damage, but must immediately disembark. The truck is then wrecked. So yeah, you get a little bit of flavour there, and represents the ramshackle nature of the truck really well. Tank busters. This was when tank busters weren't so hot. Their special rules, they didn't get the rerolls to hit on vehicles like they do now. They got the glory hogs rule. Tank busters live for the really big kills. They must always attempt to shoot at or assault an enemy vehicle if there is one in line of sight, regardless of range. If there is no visible vehicle target, the tank busters may select a target as normal. So yeah, tank busters, they weren't so hot back then. I mean, they had good things like the tank buster bombs, which had an armor penetration of 2d6 plus 6, which was pretty damn good. Bomb squigs were very much the same as they are now. They're virtually unchanged. But yeah, it was kind of you were forced to shoot at vehicles, even if it wasn't tactically wise to do so, if you wanted another target. So yeah, they weren't too hot back then. I don't think many people played them back then. We got the looters. I think this was the codex. I'm almost certain this was the codex that introduced looters. Hold on, I'm gonna check that. I want to make sure I'm just not spouting off crap on this video. Well, not false crap anyway. Let's have a look. I'm just flipping through. Oh no, I'm wrong. Looters were in the old codex. They were. However, they were very different. Very different indeed. Yeah, looters. Well, in the next video in this series, we'll be looking at them in a little bit more detail. But yeah, this was the first one in which we got this was when the models themselves were released. We did have looters in the old codex, but as we'll see on the next video coming up, when I look at the 3rd edition codex, they were very, very different back then. This was the first one where they got the def gun and came out with these new rules. And def guns are very popular, very good. They haven't changed much either. They haven't changed at all, actually, I don't think. Range 48, strength 7, AP 4. Obviously the AP is different now. And heavy D3 shots. Yeah. And burner boys, obviously, as well. This is when we got the proper plastic kit with the looters and burner boys. Really cool kit. Still seeing a lot of use now, especially in Kill Team with the new starter set we got for the Orks. And the commandos. I think this was also when we got the commandos released. So we had quite a good bunch of releases alongside or around the same time as this codex. War bikers. And this was when they used to have the rule that a lot of people missed as well, the exhaust cloud. Warbikers produce great clouds of smoky exhaust fumes, giving them a 4+ cover save. Beautiful. Very tasty indeed. Storm boys. They haven't changed a whole lot over the years. The models have changed slightly and stuff. At this point they were literally just Ork boys with rockets stuck to their back. Then later on down the line we got the plastic kit. It was a bit more sort of they were sculpted a bit more sort of specialised. Defcopters. And yeah, this would have been about the time of Black Reach, because you've even got the artwork here of the Black Reach Defcopters. even though they never ever sold them by themselves in a plastic kit, which was just crazy in my mind. They just continued still to this day selling that hideous metal one. And here we go, we're into some of the things of the past now. War buggies. We loved them back then, but they are gone now. No more war buggies, at least not as we know them. Gretchen will always be with us, because Gretchen rock, and they are still much the same. Although their weapon used to be an assault one. I think now it's a pistol. I'm sure it's counted as a pistol. I'm not 100% sure on that. And more things here. We got the zap gun. This we had big guns. This is in time before mech guns. There were no mech guns, no bubble chuckers or any of that. We just had cannons, lobbers, and zap guns. I'm a big fan of the cannons. 36-inch range. You got frag or shell shots. So you got strength 4 AP5 heavy 1 blast, or strength 8 AP3 heavy 1. Very useful. Basically like a missile launcher for Space Marines. Lobbers are quite popular, and obviously these had blast templates back then. Blast templates were very, very useful for orcs because it minimised their crap accuracy and stuff. Although remember, these are shot by Gretchen, so you were hitting on a 4+ rather than a 3+. And the zap gun, soon to be no more, at least in the form of big guns. Range 36, 2d6 strength, so very random, AP2 heavy 1, so it's like the orc version of a las gun, but much less reliable because it could roll strength 12, you could roll strength 2. And I think back then it still had the I think it still had the ability to hurt its crew. I'm not sure if it did. They did have quite a nice rule there. When they score glancing or penetrating hits against vehicles, zap guns automatically cause a crew shaken result in addition to any other effects. That's pretty cool. Death Dreads and Killer Cans. Good stuff. This was when the Grotzuka was good. Grotzuka was an awesome weapon here. Killer Cans sometimes mount a gigantic blunderbuss that fires scrap metal gathered from the floor of the mech's workshop. It has the following profile: 18-inch range, strength 6, AP5, heavy 2 blast. So I loved this thing back then. It was an awesome piece of weaponry. To fire 2 blasts out of each one, you could really rack up some kills there. And I love this little quote here. This is a sort of a radio conversation going on here. Inbound. This is Nugrob the Slayer calling. I got me boys with me. Thought you lot might want to make a deal. You give us 1,000 shooters each time we visit, and you ain't got no more worries, see? Governor Krubus. We're not giving in to your outrageous ultimatum. Never! Shame about that, 'cause I got 6 dread mobs and a couple of gargants with me. And it says there's a slight pause, and then Kubrish comes back. Let us have a few hours to reconsider. Nah, I feel like letting out the gargants after all. Brilliant stuff. Yet again, more cool writing from Phil Kelly there. And I think, again, don't quote me on this, but I think this was the first time where the Killer Cans were represented as being piloted by grots rather than orcs, because in the older codexes past this, they used to have the same ballistic skill and stuff, but this is actually represented that the Killer Cans have a better ballistic skill, so they were always the better shooting option. And back then they had dread claws, not can claws, so they had the same strength as a Death Dread in assault, so they were strength 10. They later on got nerfed in 7th edition, quite severely actually. Looted wagons. Oh, looted wagons. They've seen a few iterations before they were got rid of completely, but looted vehicles, ballistic skill 2, front armor 11, side armor 11, rear armor 10, tank open topped, and then you could customize it with various things. You could give it an hard case so it's no longer open topped, so you could have this as a transport. You could mount a boom gun on it, range 36, strength 8, AP 3, ordnance 1, large blast. Lovely gun. And it had the special rule, don't press DAT. Due to their non-Ork technology, looted wagons are prone to unforeseen difficulties. Each looted wagon must roll a dice at the start of each Ork movement phase. On the roll of a 1, that vehicle must move directly forward as far as possible as the Orks inside get carried away. This can potentially mean that the wagon may tank shock an enemy unit. Passengers may not disembark this turn. So you get a little bit of unpredictability with these, but they were very cool and gave us kit bashers and converters the chance to get hold of, like the picture here, a Lehman Russ or a Rhino or a Chimera. I think they were the most popular choices for looted wagons because they kind of fitted the similar armour. But you've seen all sorts. You've seen people do it with like Tau Devilfish and Elder Wave Serpents and all sorts of stuff. And then the battle wagons. And I think again this, I'm almost certain this, when this codex came out, was when the battle wagons, the kit that we now know, was launched. And again, amazing kit, and a really cool battle wagon. Fulfills a variety of different roles. You can kit this thing out as a tank, you know, bristling with Dakar, or you can strip it back and have it as just a big, you know, reliable transport for your troops to fit a good mob of like up to 20. Depending on what loadout you had it with. Flash Gitz. Flash Gitz. This was when Flash Gitz were good. And again, from what we hear, rumour mill, they're going to be good again soon. 4+ save. Bingo. Just as it should be. And then their snaz guns were very different. They were quite customisable back then. So the snaz guns they came with were range 24, strength 5, D6 penetration, and assault 1s, just one shot. But you could pay the points and give them these upgrades. So you could give them more Dakar, which made them assault 2. You could make them shootier, which upped their strength from 5 to 6. Or you could give them a blaster upgrade, which increased the result of the AP roll by 1, or subtract 1 from your AP roll, but it would give it the Gets Hot special rule. So, and this was great as well because flash kit models didn't actually exist then. I remember with this codex, I remember actually starting to convert and kit bash my own flash kits. I remember buying the burner looters kit back then, just for the reason to chop them all up and use the parts of the weapons to create snaz guns. There's something about that kit. I've always done that. Now, for example, I bought that kit, but I don't actually have any looters or burner squads. I used the majority of the parts in there for my tank busters. So there's a lot to be said for that kit, for its kit bashing and conversion possibilities. Good old Captain Badruck with his gold tooth armour, 3+ save, 5+ invuln, and his quality gun, the Ripper. Cool character. Everyone loves Badruck. Gazgul Thraka, was awesome as ever. Prophet of the War. He had some amazing rules. So Gazgul's war cry can unleash a war of devastating proportions. Gazgul's war can be summoned at any time, but only once per game, and not on the first turn. It replaces the army's usual war. This one is better. Gazgul's war lasts the remainder of that player turn and all the following player turn. During this period, Gazgul's saving throw is invulnerable. He has a 2+ save, so for one entire game turn, yours and the opponent's, he has a 2+ invulnerable save. It's beautiful. Furthermore, for the duration of the war, all Ork infantry units automatically count as rolling a 6 for the war movement they wish to make. All non-fleeing friendly units become fearless for the duration of the war. So Gazkul has kind of always been, in terms of named characters, kind of an auto-include. Just for the special rules and the buffs he gives out, and just the killing power that he has. He has always been an absolute powerhouse. Mad Doc Grotznik. And I had rules in here. This was the last time we'd see rules for Wazdaka Gutsmech with the Bike of the Apocalypse. And it's quite mad because they never made a model. This was back at a time when they used to make rules and data sheets and stuff for things they didn't have a model of, like old Zogwart. Zogwart's Curse. Old Zogwart has the ability to transform a powerful enemy into a squig. Zogwart may use his curse as a psychic power instead of rolling on the Weird Boy psychic power chart. Choose an independent character that is in Zogwart's line of sight. If that model is within 18 inches, both players roll a dice. If the Ork player scores higher, the target model is replaced with an angry squig under the control of your opponent. You must provide the squig model. It has the profile below, no war gear or special rules, but is an independent character that counts as infantry. So, can you imagine turning Gilliman into a squig? It's just you roll a dice, your opponent rolls a dice. And if Gilliman rolls a 1, the Primarch of the Ultra Smurfs is now a squig. It's just too damn good. It's still under the control of the opponent though. They can't moan, they get a pretty cool squig out of it. Boss Snickrot still with us, and Boss Zagstruck. And this is where we go into some of the things where it's giving advice and tips about launching your war and theming your army and building your army and where to start. And it shows you sort of a good starting point here, and gives you good tips and advice on painting. Shows you examples from the heavy metal team, the quality old school war bosses that you can still get. I believe it's this one. One of my war bosses is a combination of these two. I took parts from both. There's old Gazzy, still the same, needs updating desperately. And then we've got the knob with the war banner. I've got this one, and I've got a couple of these old metal knobs. They're quite cool, and they still tie in quite nicely with the current knobs because they're not that much smaller. And the old metal mega knobs, do not drop one of them bastards on your foot, I can tell you. And the mechs, big mechs. This one here I always wanted. I never got round to buying him, and now you look on eBay, this guy sells for a lot. I think I've seen one of these going for about £45 on eBay, metal one. It's just a big mech with a custom Mega Blaster, but I just love the model. I don't know why, there's just something about him. He's got the sort of little blowtorch goggles on him and the tools, and he just looks cool to me, and I always wanted this model. Never bought him when they were selling him at like normal price, and now he's incredibly rare because I think most people opted for this one with the custom force field. You know, in game terms, very wise, but I just love this model. He just looks so cool. And the old Pain Boy, I actually prefer this one. I used to have this in my old Ork army, and I loved that model, with the little Grot Orderly with him. I'm not a big fan of it's okay, but I preferred this Pain Boy to the current Pain Boy. I've never been keen on this Weird Boy model because I don't like this bit with the chain. It just looks weird to me. It doesn't look right. It doesn't look natural with the Grot holding on. And old Mad Doc Grotznik, that's an old model now as well, but he still holds up actually, I would say. He does still hold up. And the boys truck, so it just gives you lots of examples. Good to get your inspiration going. Showing off the looters and burners, they were the new hotness at the time. There's the quality Grot Oiler there. I don't know where that Grot Oiler came from though. I think you had to buy that one separate. I don't know where that came from because it doesn't come with this kit. And obviously the one they've got now is very similar to that, but comes with the Mega Knobs kit. So I don't know how you could get that one before. Might have been in a blister pack or something back then. Tank busters, when they were metal, same kit still available now, but in fail cast. And the old metal grots with the runt herds. Commandos again used to be metal, now they're fail cast. And the old school Storm Boys that, like you can see, they are literally just Ork boys with rockets strapped to their backs. And the bikes and old vintage models now. Won't see many more of these, although there's been no mention of new Defcopters, so we're probably still going to be stuck with this fucker for the next 20 years. But these are long gone now, so it's a shame in some ways. They've got a lot of nostalgia to them, but they stuck around for far too long. It's not even the actual models themselves so much, it's the Orks. You know, the vehicles themselves are okay. I mean, they're dated, but it's the Orks that are piloting them that show their age, because they don't tie in with the other Orks. They're so much smaller, and just they had a different look back then in like 2nd edition. Old school Def Dreads and Cans. I think these would hold up fine now. If you mix these in with the new ones, I think they would just add to the variety of your army and they wouldn't look out of place. These are no more, obviously. I love some of the little grots of them, like the little fella here with the telescope and that. Grots are cool. Grots are fun. And it shows the different clans, examples of like the painting styles and stuff. So you've got the Evil Sons, Death Skulls with their lucky blue war paint, Snake Bites. I'm not sure about this dude here with the red eyebrows. I know it's not red eyebrows, it's war paint, but it kind of just looks like he's got big bushy red eyebrows. Bad Moons, a very similar colour scheme to what I'm kind of going for. Just hints of yellow and black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Blood Axes, Skarner's posse, covered in their camouflage, just sneaky Gitz. And then I like this, it shows examples of armies. This is very handy for people getting started and wanting to sort of decide what direction they want to go in. So they give an example of an Ork infantry horde and list all the squads, upgrades and points and everything, and they do a few different 1500 point armies. So here's your infantry horde, 1500 points worth, lots and lots of boys, Storm Boys, Commandos, etc., led by Gazgol, so a very typical sort of goth theme there. Then we've got the Speed Freaks army, so Evil Sun styly, and again 1500 points. So you've got your biker mobs, you've got your truck boys, some buggies and stuff at the back, and then the big mech army, so a bit more specialised. So you've got cans, you've got Def Dreads, you've got big guns, you've got looters, burners, trucks, Defcopters. So kind of similar sort of style to what I'm going to be heading towards with my army, slightly different. And then we get a nice picture of, look, what every Ork player eventually dreams of owning. Fully painted, thousands and thousands of points worth of Orks in an awesome looking fortress. Probably all built out of cardboard and stuff, but looks incredible. And then here's something we don't see much of anymore. Conversion tips. And some really cool ones as well. And I love the fact that a lot of these are quite subtle, like this dude here. They just show a way to convert one with a big shooter, and he's got a normal shooter, but they've just stuck another shooter barrel on to extend it. So he's got a big shooter, sticks around on him, but bent the foot back so it's sort of showing the recoil of the gun. One here with a chain from a biker bit, and the head from a burner, and a peg leg. A flash kit here, converted flash kit, as you can see. You had to convert your own if you wanted them back then. And a trike, early prototype of the Death Killer War trike. And there's one with a big shooter, and yeah, it's quite cool showing just examples of swapping heads and bits from different kits. So these kits are great that you can, you know, mix and match the parts. And it was just, they actively encouraged conversions and kit bashes a lot more back then. They weren't so desperate to sell you the kits of stuff, you know. And then you get all your war gear options. Some nice artwork there, some of the weapons. I miss a lot of the old black and white art. I know all the colour art and stuff in them now is really cool, but I do like cyborg bodies. They used to be good. 5+ invan save. Used to be able to give your war boss that. And some of the knobs, I think, as well. Give them cyborg bodies. Cyborg bodies in the index are crap. Hopefully they're about to get a lot better. All the Ork vehicle upgrades you could have: hard case, armour plates, boarding plank, death roller, grabbing claw, grot riggers, wrecking ball, stick bomb chucker, reinforced ram, red paint job. Red paint job adds +1 to their movement in the movement phase. And then it goes into the Ork army list with the old school force org chart. And some part of me does miss this a bit. I like the options we got now to create any armies we like, but it does get abused by some people. I like the fact that we got this to create a themed army, but I think most people use the new way to just create all powerful, all killing lists. And I like this way that you did have to used to pay like a tax for troops and HQ and stuff. They're doing good with it now. They give you great rewards and stuff for having certain detachments now. So you do still pay that sort of troop tax and stuff, but you get benefits and rewards for it with the command points. So they are working towards encouraging that good sort of army list building behaviour, if you will. But this did used to force people to build sort of rounded lists and not just spam elites and special characters and stuff. It just tells you about how making a list, and then you've got the bit here, so you've got all your data sheets here. But to find the special rules, you got to sort of flip back and forward, so it was a bit of a ball ache. Whereas obviously now it's much easier. Now when you're on the data sheet of a unit, it's got all its special rules there, it's got all its stats. The only thing it doesn't have is its points. So in terms of building the list, you probably are flipping back and forward a bit, but when you're actually playing the game, you don't need to be doing that. In this, you kind of be reading this, then you need to read what a special rule does, and so it was a bit of a ball ache back then. Also, you'll see that certain things adapted your army building. So a war boss allows 1 mega nobs or 1 nobs mob to be taken as a troops choice. If you had a big mech would allow 1 death dread to be taken as a troop choice. So, for example, if you wanted to build a good dread mob, you're only allowed 3 death dreads, but if you had 2 big mechs in your army, they would allow 2 more to be taken as troops. So it was to represent the way of these. So your war boss is obviously going to have his retinue of knobs with him. Your big mech will be building death dreads. Some quite cool things there that sort of changed the way you could build your lists. And some of the points of them. Grots are still 3 points. Oddboys are still 6 points. 1 mob per army can be upgraded to Oddboys for 4 points a model. Good stuff. We missed that. But it seems to be coming back, at least in one form or another. Not a lot has changed. War buggies, 30 points. Bargain. Deathcopters, 35 points a model. They're a lot more expensive currently in the index anyway. Flash Gitz were 25 points a model. Each upgrade to the gun, so if you wanted them with the top guns, you'd end up paying quite a bit. 40 points per flash git by the time you've upgraded them all. 5 points for ammo runs. Whew, they were expensive. Battle wagon with its massive list of upgrades and options, and again, even give you some little examples here. Gorbad's Gobsmasher, the Gore Speeder, the Bone Cruncher of Bork. The looted wagon, equally with quite a few different upgrades and options to customise. And there we go, you get your index at the back. And a couple more pictures, and that's it. 4th edition Codex, done. I think that was the old Start Collecting set, wasn't it here? I'm sure that's what you used to get in it. Some boys, bikes, or as they called, they weren't called start collecting sets back then, were they? They were called, I can't remember what they were called, but basically the same thing. But yeah, there you go, guys. So 4th/5th/6th edition Ork Codex. Good stuff. So there we go, guys. Hope you enjoyed that trip down memory lane with me, looking back through the 4th edition Ork Codex. It was good. It's brought back some nostalgic memories. I've got some fond memories of using that one. Yeah, it takes back memories to the games I was playing back then with them and the army I was building towards. And yeah, really good stuff. And I would highly recommend any Ork player now to pick this book up. This is very cheap to pick up on eBay and stuff, and there is so much lore and fluff and artwork and stuff in here that is well worth a read. But anyway, we've been travelling back through time. We've done 7th edition Codex. We've now done the 4th edition Codex. In the next episode of this playlist, we're going to travel even further back to take a look at this, the 3rd edition Ork Codex. And this was the first one I had. This is when I started playing with orcs, and this is really highly thought of, and I'm looking forward to covering this one, and I'm sure a lot of you are too. So please, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss a video in the future when I'll be covering this bad boy. This is 6+ Stevo signing out.